Hey, you guys remember like 4 years ago when I wrote a book as a joke and then left it on a cliffhanger? Yeah, I fixed it. There's a sequel out now. If you go onto Amazon and type President Troll and the Three-Headed Fox, you'll see the sequel to my book, which I threw off camera. This thing, I finally wrote a sequel to it. You should buy a copy. There's hardcover, paperback, and of course Kindle if you're a digital fanboy. Anyway, on to the video. Hello trainers, my name's Professor, this is my assistant Sylveon, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite dragon types in all of Pokemon. It's no secret that dragons are some of the coolest mythical creatures to ever be created. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, every culture has some mention of dragons. Even the Bible talks about them. But in the universe of Pokemon, there are tons of cool dragon types out there. I mean, there's a reason that Charizard is one of, if not the most popular Pokemon to this day. Why then am I choosing to talk about Salamence? That's because of every dragon type in existence, none of them have as cool a backstory as Salamence does.
Hello trainers, Sylveon here. Thanks to the professor's bizarre sense of humor, he's asked me to step in and do the voiceover for this video. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed my work, since no one else around the Flying Lab seems to. For today's video, we're talking about why Salamence is so cool. Lucky for the professor and Ditto, I actually find our resident Salamence, affectionately named Sally, rather enjoyable to be around. If she had hair, it would certainly have turned white already from all of the shenanigans she's had to pull the professor and Ditto out of. Despite all of this, she's let me in on what it's like to be a Salamence and what it took to get here. Like all Pokemon, she began her life as something different than what she is now. As a Bagon, Sally felt a strong determination to fly high and soar above the clouds. The only problem is that she had no wings, and in this case, she couldn't fly without them. This didn't stop her from climbing on top of cars and houses and jumping off, hoping against hope that wings would magically sprout from her shoulders. Sadly, they never did. However, some good did come of it. One day, while leaping off of the top of a local Pokemon Center, Sally ended up landing headfirst in some weird purple goo. That goo turned out to be Ditto, who was not happy to say the least. The professor soon arrived, and after clearing up what had happened, decided to take Sally under his wing. One trip to the Flying Lab later, and Sally would begin her training to be the best dragon the Flying Lab in the sky would ever have. From this we learn that Bagons are literally and figuratively hard-headed. They all share a deep desire to fly, and will go to great lengths to attempt to do so. Some have been recorded going so far as to hitch rides from flying predators, only to break free in mid-air and plummet to the ground below. Don't worry, Sally has assured us that most Bagons don't got that far. As you may have guessed, Sally didn't stay a Bagon forever. She did eventually evolve into a Shelgon, which to me looks like a gray pastry roll with legs. Funny enough, not even Sally knows what Shelgon looks like underneath all that armor. She remembered spending all her time moving around like a turtle, not caring who she ran into or what she broke. To her, being a Shelgon made her feel like a lesser creature since she couldn't even get upstairs without help from Machoke. It was really humiliating, and her dream of being able to fly had never felt farther away. She felt alone and trapped, and wasn't sure anyone understood what it was like being stuck in your own skin. Of course, this is when the professor and her really came to understand one another. When he was younger, the professor admitted he'd felt like an adult trapped in a kid's body. There had been so many places he'd wanted to go, and so many things he'd been unable to do all became of his age. He told her, things don't get better overnight, but they do eventually get better. Sally asked me not to share that part, but it was too cute not to include. From that time on, Sally worked with the professor to strengthen her legs so that she could carry her own weight more effectively. She also worked with Machoke when she was available, growing flexible enough to where she could walk up the stairs on her own without any help. To help her live her dream, at least in some small part, the professor and Ditto also arranged for Sally to go with Garchomp down to the surface, getting rides whenever it was possible. All of this helped Sally realize that she wasn't ever truly alone, and that no matter how much life beat her down, there would always be someone there to help roll her over. Shelgon are tough cookies, able to withstand a lot of wear and tear to the point where even Tyrannotars have a hard time beating them up. Predators usually avoid them altogether, because the time and effort it would take to break one's defense simply isn't worth the time. That being said, some wild Pokemon do try and pick fights with Shelgon when they see an opening. In moments like these, Shelgon will use breath attacks and rolling maneuvers together to stagger opponents long enough for them to get away. When one gets rolling downhill, few things can have any hope of stopping them. It's been observed by the Professor and Ditto that Shelgons are similar to bug-type Pokemon Stage 1, like Metapod. Unlike Metapod, Shelgon seems able to move more freely and appear nimbler. Now, as you may have guessed, eventually Sally did evolve into a Salamence, and she's since called it the happiest day of her life. It was during a routine flight when something began to change within her. She felt her head and tail sprouted from within her shell as 2 wings exploded from her back. Shaped like axes, she roared and took to the sky as tears flowed freely down her face. I should mention that she didn't stop flying for 2 days and nearly starved to death after crashing into the side of the flying lab. She'll never admit it, but she was really grateful to see Machoke shaking her awake that day. Salamence are full of gratitude and life, soaring through the air at ridiculous speeds, tearing the clouds apart with their wings. They spew beams of power from their mouths, destroying everything in their wake. At least that's what the legends claim. All I have to go off of it's Sally's life, and it's safe to say that while she was relieved beyond all doubt, she didn't hurt anyone. I also want to mention that the Pokédex claims that Salamence can become terribly violent and even turn on their trainers at a moment's notice. I've never seen Sally do any such thing, though she does but heads with the Professor at times. Offering a different perspective, she often carries the task of being the Professor and Ditto's personal ride to and from the surface, and despite Ditto clearly being the second in command, everyone around here knows that Sally is running the show. Well, that's all I have to say about one of my favorite dragons here at the Flying Lab in the sky. If you want to hear me talk about my friends in future videos, tell the Professor in the comments. He reads all of them, even the ones that make him upset. If you enjoyed the writing of this video, then you'll love the long-awaited sequel to President Troll, now available on Amazon. Buying a copy today not only gives you a great book to read, free from foul language and inappropriate content, but also goes to support an up-and-coming creative with plenty more stories to tell. I'm Sylveon, and thank you for watching. As the Professor always says, we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.